And suddenly, it's spring. But for real this time.
Root system.
Okay, I know it's been quite some time since I was last able to compile and edit these little snippets of all that's happening in my life. A lot has happened, just as anyone would hope for. From the grand and important, like recording almost all of my next album.
Claiming every sweetness for your taste. You shape the land to build your walls. Do what it takes to feel.
Celebrating Beltane at a beach retreat with my circle. And more personally, celebrating my husband's and my 11th anniversary as a couple. To those much smaller important moments, like good meals, good friends, good views, and, of course, good pastries. And I am always a sucker for good pastries. I've always loved this time of year, but this time around it felt like the grasp of winter clung onto us for so very long, as we waited for the quickening of the earth yet again. Like many of you, I felt like I had a visceral need for spring. Like I couldn't wait anymore, and that this time was wearing me down more so than any year in the past. This longing comes around every year, of course, but is it always this intense? Maybe, or maybe not. It's hard to say. Perhaps at some point, I'll be winter, with stability and rest, with the pause that charges the year, the huddled and the calm. Maybe at some point I'll be summer, with freedom in my veins in the height of life. Feast and play and stay up too late, adding my new definition to the word fruition. But for now, I think I'm spring. I am beginnings and change. I am nourished by the first brilliant rays piercing through my eyelids. The plants in their pots being moved outside, drinking the morning and preparing for growth. A newly unfurling leaf that, someday soon, may yet bear fruit. We have some friends who like to say that change is always good. Now, that hasn't always been my outlook, and I can't say I'm ready to adopt it as my own quite yet. But we feel like things here are starting to grow a little stagnant. They need to be shaken, like a delicious cocktail made by my own home bartender. And stirred, like the cultures in my new sourdough starter that I just got from my friend Joseph. And yes, I know I'm 2 years behind on this trend. I have a tendency to be, trend resistant, I guess. Maybe in another 2 years, I'll start playing Wordle. I don't know. We'll see. Since I last posted a video, there's been so much progress in recording Skybound, my next album. The Kickstarter had a successful end, meeting its goal and a bit over it, in fact, a few days before the funding deadline. Which, of course, was super exciting for me.
Good morning. Check your Kickstarter.
Oh shit! This is very, oh my god. Since then, I've been in the studio a few days a week and coordinating with other musicians to get all the necessary sounds on a schedule that works for everybody. It's stressful and it's complicated, and more than a little scary coordinating and organizing this all on my own. But it's going to be something really special when it's done.
A story fit for skies above, the fruit born of the vine, a glance that questions time. You stumbled in, and I forgot all hesitation when I'm normally so cautious.
And then, late in April, about a week after I started recording, I met up with some friends for our Beltane retreat. Though I've been meeting with these women online for about a year now, this was the first time many of us had met in person, and it was wonderful. Our 3.5-day trip was filled with gorgeous views, dramatic weather, beautiful bonfires, and so much food. Oh, and magic, of course. If you're unfamiliar with the celebration of Beltane, it's a fire festival that marks one of the major holidays in the Wheel of the Year. It's all about warmth returning, life springing up in the changing of the season, and just a lot of general merriment. If you're interested in learning more, check out this video made by a friend from this group. Her channel has some great information if you're into this sort of thing. Though this happened to be a pretty chilly weekend for our celebration of warmth, we definitely had fire. See, everybody can sing high.
clothes, pack the car, and head towards 90. 'Cause I won't wait for a plan. I'm gonna drench my soul in the Pacific and bury these woes in the sand.
During this time of year, I often find my mind returning to the decay that feeds all this new growth. The rot of last year's leaves and petals that makes all this blooming possible. If you're at all familiar with tarot, you've probably seen the Death card before, which at first glance seems like an incredibly negative and foreboding card to draw. But this card actually represents endings and the changes and beginnings they spur. Like the very common phrase seen all over my social media around every full moon, I release what no longer serves me. Earlier in the season, I bought a new deck that I love, and one of the prompts in the paired book was to identify your card for the year. Through their process, my card for this year was lucky or unlucky number 13, Death. At first, I found this to be disappointing and frustrating. I rolled my eyes, shuffled, and placed it back into a decisive mid-deck position. And it wasn't until weeks later, when I started to romanticize the transition from atrophy to artistry, that I began to see the relevance of that card. There are certainly many parts of my life that are about to go through a metaphorical death. A great many, in fact. But like the resilient lichen feeding on the rot in the cracks of jagged rocks, in the deeply grooved, knotted, and gnarled bark of trees, something new is springing up out of it. There's no way around the fact that endings are almost always tinged with at least a little bit of sadness. But with the way our plans are shaping up, we are much more excited about this open-ended future than the safety of choosing to live the same year again next year. As the weather has been warmer, we're opening the windows and cycling out the stale air, taking a loud inhale of that hint of summer on the breeze. I've repotted some of my plants and propagated others, fertilized those that needed it, and only now am I seeing the heavy symbolism in the fact that I am literally out of room for these plants to continue growing. I can change the pot and add some green drops to a spray bottle, but they're not getting what they need, stagnating here and waiting. So, Out on the horizon comes the ending to this chapter. Still a few months out, still entirely unsettled and unsure, but drifting towards us with a welcoming wave. For us, this summer will be an ending to so much we've become accustomed to. But it will also be one hell of a beginning. See you soon.